Hey you guys, I wanted to come on here and honor your request of me covering the poll topic that I had posted in my community tab. The general consensus was that all of you wanted me to talk about the issues of why Black people keep going on the Maury show. I think it necessitates a conversation about Black people's engagement in situations that portray them in a negative light. I'm fairly certain that a majority of you are familiar with Maury and the synopsis of his shows. It deals with several issues that plague American societal culture, such as teen pregnancy, paternity issues, teenagers and children who act out erratically and display rebellious acts of behavior. And another component to his show is that for most of his seasons up until COVID, there was always a live audience that exacerbated or riled up the guests. And if you guys research some of the behind the scenes information regarding Maury, the audience is often instructed to applaud someone or shower a guest with condescension. So no surprise there that the audience is pretty much fabricated and contrived and are there simply to just basically make the guests experience a heightened sense of emotion. But I don't watch Maury because I am aware of the type of person that he is. He's someone who receives gratification from exploiting the dysfunction of Black people. And I know some of you may feel compelled to argue that, he has guests of other races and cultures. And while that may be true, you must carefully observe and monitor who primarily appears on his show, seemingly by default. And it's important that we understand why socially this is unacceptable for Black people to be shown in such a light that does not represent the best perspective of our community. Because I pay attention to the way that we conduct ourselves in the midst of appearing on his show, and it is unappealing. And if you guys are like me, you probably look on in disappointment. I've always said that this show is ominous, the way that it has the capability to bring out the absolute worst in terms of our comportment. And I find our conduct to be uncivilized and discourteous. In one of his discussion forums I found for one of his behind the scenes, I read that his staff will not only instruct the audience, but the staff will tell the guests to behave in a way that is not conducive to their true nature. So imagine if I went on that show, for example. I'm a very calm and reserved person, so I don't yell or conduct myself in a way that's cantankerous, but the producers may tell me to act as though I've taken adrenaline and then try to change my character, which is a huge slap in the face, because why would I want to change who I am for the purpose of entertainment? And I tell myself this all the time: if you have to engage in behavior that forces you to change who you are or become this false persona that clearly doesn't represent you in the best light, then it just isn't worth it. And I've been talking about the show on a consecutive basis, and I'm sure you guys have also taken notice, but I believe that there is a faction of Black people whose psyche has some varying deficiencies, because with this sector of people, their cognitive thought process appears to be flawed in a way that their morality does not prohibit them from making decisions that they'll later regret. And I remember coming across an episode of Maury where there was a Black woman having a paternity issue, and I think it was like her 12th time coming on the show. And so there's this narrative that Black women are promiscuous, Black men abandon their responsibility the moment they sleep with a woman in an effort to absolve themselves of any obligations they may potentially have. And this energy is unhealthy for our community. I understand and I'm cognizant to the fact that this section of Black people may have some deep-rooted psychological issues that explain this behavior. However, I think the problem for me is the aesthetic and the fact that this show is broadcast nationally, and it perpetuates the negative stereotypes that we try so desperately hard to dispel about ourselves. We know not all Black women are promiscuous, and we know that there are Black men who understand well the responsibilities they have when it comes to raising their children. And this show works vehemently to destroy and distort and warp the narrative by making it seem like dysfunction is a norm for our culture. And the fact that you have Black people still going on the show, knowing the consequences and the embarrassment, it perplexes me. But when you pay attention to other pathologies within our community, it isn't too difficult to comprehend. In order for us to understand the compulsion we feel in regards to frequenting this show, we need to understand other habits that Black people engage in that aren't necessarily healthy for them in one way or another. One, Black people are the biggest followers of Eurocentric religions, despite evidence showing that those religions are manufactured. Also, Black people believe in Eurocentric governance and politics that they think will somehow garner them success if they keep participating in this incessant game of football that everyone seems to win at except us. And I say all that to say we have a counterproductive propensity to follow these traditions, no matter how degenerate they are in nature. But it might also have to do with the fact that we are aware of how disenfranchised we are. And so we reach for straws at any avenue that seem like that it will help to uplift the social status of our community. Now, I brought that up because if you guys do a comparison of the amount of desperation we have in situations such as those, and pay attention to the people who show up on Maury still after all these years, it can be assumed that an abnormality exists within the confines of some of our people's psyche. And I compiled and put together some clips from the show, and let me tell you, it's very retrograde and deserving of condemnation. Now, you guys be the judge, and after seeing this montage, ask yourself the question, why do black people
in the case of 2-year-old Denver, Damon, you are nuts! In the case of 3-year-old Junior, Pie, you are nuts! Oh, my people, that you can pinpoint exactly...
Yes, Maury, where the cameraman? Yes, I can!
You are the father! In the case of 1-year-old Zamarion, Damon, you are not...
You guys just saw that compilation, and I know for me it's something that I find to be distasteful. This country has made a mockery of us for such a long time, and we have the power in this area to actually stop the humiliation by choosing to no longer go on his show. This man still has guests on the show during the pandemic by having them film remotely from a location offset, and there isn't an audience, but the adverse exchanges between the guests remain unchanged. And since black people attend the show on their own volition without coercion from others around them, I sometimes find myself asking the question of if this faction of black people gets some type of thrill from being on TV acting in this buffoonish manner. Think about other shows like Jerry Springer, Love and Hip Hop, The Real Housewives of Atlanta, and notice the similarities in the behavior of black people with each of these shows. You see that they could all be the same show with the level of dysfunction that's propagated from these programs. In order to make progress, it starts with us, and it starts in our minds. Our development will continue to face this perpetual hindrance until we can desensitize and unlearn undesirable misconducts and bad habits. But even before we take steps towards improving these areas, we need to first address and admit that a problem exists. Without having the discussions openly about these issues, it will continue to metastasize and gradually worsen as time goes on. However, I also want to throw this in before concluding my analysis, but even when black people go on Maury, I notice he has this sneaky, messy, and acrimonious manner in which he asks questions that are suggestive of instigation. What I mean by this is Maury will ask the guests questions that make the situation worse or even more dramatic, but he'll do it in a way that flies over the heads of the guests. But I caught on to his routine. It's really subtle, so you have to kind of catch it. It really doesn't benefit him to know the story of the guest, in my opinion, if he already has the results in his hands for the lie detector or the paternity, because regardless of what the guests tell him, he can just read the results. But that's why I think he has a lust for mortification. He gets a kick out of this, watching black women do the splits and twerking over something so foolish. And I guarantee you, that man laughs the moment he leaves the studio, because at the end of the day, look at who made a mockery of themselves. It isn't Maury. It's us who embarrass ourselves. Then the black men who go on there for whatever odd reason can never seem to pass a lie detector test, making it seem like that the majority of black men are nothing more than liars who sleep with any and everyone and are incapable of monogamy. The whole show is destructive to black people, which is why I detest our presence on that show. Again, it's extremely exploitative and degrading, especially that woman who's been on there like 12 times. But I would never allow anyone I care about to embarrass themselves like that. It's diabolical to your character, and it diminishes your credibility as a viable partner. And I want to close this out with a final request, even though I'm sure it won't do much. But please stop going on Maury. It contributes to the toxic behaviors we're working to reverse, and it paints the black community in the most morally compromising positions, and I don't want that for us. What are your thoughts on our continuous appearance on Maury? Do you think there's a narrative to showcase Black people in a negative light with these paternity issues and problems with honesty? Also, why does it seem like that the Black guests 9 times out of 10 either don't pass their lie detector test, or the paternity test proves the man not to be the father of a child or children? Let's talk about it in the comment section. I do value you guys' input so much, and I thank you for watching my videos. It helps me out a lot to know your feedback on it. Make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. And make sure you guys hit that notification bell in the subscribe section so that way you don't miss any time that I upload a video. And I will talk to you guys in the next one.